Today on Beyond 6 Seconds.
If someone comes to me and tells me however many years from now that after putting down the book, they went out and created something or doubled down on the thing they're already doing, to me, that would be hugely impactful. And I think that it has the potential to really do that.
Welcome to Beyond 6 Seconds, the podcast that goes beyond the 6-second first impression to share the extraordinary stories and achievements of everyday people. I'm your host, Carolyn Keel. Today on the Beyond 6 Seconds podcast, I'm speaking with Arlan Hamilton, the founder and managing partner of Backstage Capital and author of the brand new book, It's About Damn Time, which comes out on May 5th. Arlan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to learn more about your brand new book and about all the amazing experiences that you've had. So what inspired you to write It's About Damn Time?
I wanted there to be a place where all the things I've gone through, or a great deal of them, and the lessons learned could be put into one place that was accessible to people. I think books are really accessible, whether it's listened to or read, and the price point is accessible, and I love that part too. And I wanted to not only inspire people, because I think people will be inspired by it, that's what I'm hearing from early feedback, but I wanted to give practical tools and explain how to do certain things. So I could inspire you with the fuel to go do the thing, but also not just send you out there into the ether without any kind of guidance. So it's just really my journey, and in a sea of inspirational books and a sea of how-tos and business books, etc. I wanted to really stand out and be relatable and reach a high impact. I also feel like the book has a high ROI, return on investment. And what I mean by that is I think that however you get the book or what method you use, if someone comes to me and tells me a year from now or however many years from now that after putting down the book, they went out and created something or doubled down on the thing they're already doing, to me, that would be hugely impactful. And I think that it has the potential to really do that.
Fantastic. Yeah, so sounds like a real blend of something meant to inspire, but really with strong guidance and very actionable, something that people can use to work towards their own dreams and their own goals in life.
That's the plan. Yeah, that is what I set out to do. I truly didn't just want to be in the category of, let me get you with the title, It's About Damn Time. Let me give you some anecdotes and it's feel good. I really wanted to be able to also say, let's go out there and together, let's build and let's create our mini empires together.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you've had an amazing story, which I imagine much of it is probably in your book as part of the inspiration and sharing the lessons that you've learned along the way. Can you share a little bit about some of the stories that you share there and maybe a piece or two of advice that comes out of them?
Yeah, I split the book into 8 sections, and we talk about things like resiliency and authenticity, things like that, and we take anecdotes and examples. For instance, I talk about a couple of ways that I met investors and how I was very, hacked my way into meeting them, and they turned out to be investors that went on to invest in me. And I think those are kind of relatable because a lot of times when you're, especially in a business book setting, you'll hear things like their version of hustle might be that for a summer, they worked that summer job and kind of, saved all their pennies and then went on to that Ivy League school. Mine is more like, I asked someone who worked at a venue where a speaker was, an investor was, to show me the back door entrance into how to get into where he would later be, it's like a hack story, right? And also gave, the good and the bad. The funny thing is that what I learned is that we're all the heroes of our own stories. So there's a lot of stuff that makes me the hero in this story, but I did try to temper it with some massive fails. So like face plants for sure.
To keep it real and really show the full extent of the experience. Because, right, it's not all about success after success. That's not even necessarily how you learn to achieve the things you want in life.
Correct.
Absolutely. And that story that you just mentioned, a lot of people who are where they are, particularly in the field of venture capital and doing these types of investments in startups, a lot of people really come from a homogeneous type of background where they have that network already and the finances. But you As you said, you had hacks and you networked and worked your way into this world coming from the outside, from a completely different industry and a different background than a lot of the people that are also in venture capital. So tell me a little bit about starting Backstage Capital. Like, how did you even discover venture capitalism as a field and decide you wanted to get into that?
Sure. I was in my very early, like maybe 30, 31, early 30s. I'll be 40 this year, 2020. And I had many lives and many careers and many failures and successes and all that. But mostly I had to spend my life being broke,
Hmm.
and was still for several years after. But I started realizing after noticing a few things that were going on that I should probably start a company in the tech space, because I was an entrepreneur at heart, and I believe that anyone can start a company in that space because of the low barrier of entry today. You could start one. The where it gets really tricky is where the resources come from to continue, but it was like a challenge to me. So I started doing all this research, as many people listening probably would have done, like start researching it and saying,
Hmm.
okay, what are who are the players? How does this work? And I learned about venture capitalists, and I said, okay, cool, let's go. And then I started looking around. I'm like, wait a minute, why are most of these dudes like dudes, first of all, and
Hmm.
white? And what's that about? And then on top of that, I found a statistic that was staggering that said that 90% plus of all venture capital that goes into startups is going to straight white men, when they only make up a third or so of the population of the United States. And so that stopped me in my tracks, because I said, well, that doesn't make much sense, first of all. Second of all, I'm gay, black, and a woman. I'm going to have a lot of issues. And then third of all, but most important, I was like, it doesn't even matter. Like, if I get investment in my company, what about the hundreds of others that I know about, and maybe the thousands that exist, who are trying to work in this world too, and deserve every piece of it as anyone else would? People of color, LGBTQ, women. What about us?
Hmm.
And so then it became this bigger mission, yes, and also a bigger opportunity. And as someone who played Monopoly since I was in the third grade, and has watched Richard Branson move, and watched Shark Tank for years, all of that, I was like, this is an opportunity, and I want to see what I can do here. So I set out at that time, and it took me about 4.5 years to get my first check, which was the tough part, right? Was
Hmm.
like that part of it. And then beyond that, it has been an uphill climb. But we've been able to invest in more than 100 companies since 2015, after I got my team together. And the first half of that was me, but the team has come in, and we've done really like 130 actually at
Wow.
the time of this taping. And I mean, it's a different world, and it's still difficult. It's still a lot. I mean, I just got a text just moments ago from a founder that we've invested in, who's having a hard time with everything that's going on right now,
Yeah.
and losing talent, and just freaking out. And this is a person who is normally really confident and really with it, and they're having a hard time. And so that's now what we're in, that stage, is that triaging stage of how do we help our founders who are going through it, and how do we support our founders who are actually thriving during this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. Your book is coming out at a time when a lot of entrepreneurs and small businesses and just really a lot of people in general are struggling because we're in a new it's a whole new game. It's like just people trying to figure out, what to do in this situation. I guess it's still sort of early on in this new situation, but do you have any advice or guidance for entrepreneurs who, maybe are just starting out with their startup and are struggling? Anything they should keep in mind?
Well, I would say keep in mind that if you're just starting out, you're actually really, you have an advantage over a lot of people who are further along
Hmm.
right now, because they have to kind of really figure out how to turn ship, or just stay afloat, or even maybe go under, not to use that analogy
Yeah.
too much, but they really do. And like, if you're just starting out, you have a lot of power in this. Like, you can make the decision today that you want to do more bootstrapping than raising capital. And if you make that decision today, you have so much control over your destiny, because yes, it will be more difficult, and yes, it'll be more painful and uncomfortable, but you will kind of rise above this sort of rat race that a lot of us have to be in, where we're constantly looking for other people's capital to keep us going. And it also makes you super agile and flexible in your thinking. So you get really creative because you have to figure out more. You're not just focused on how do I get that person to invest in me. You're focused on how do I get the customer to maybe go to a higher price point, or how do I have more products roll out, or how do I do this, this, and that. And you make it more about your customer and what you're actually working on than the separate side game of the side hustle of raising, and things start to really open up for you. So I would say that for people who are just getting started and people who are in it, if you're in it and you're deep in the trenches and you find yourself really stuck, one way to get out of that could be to just take a couple of days as a retreat. And even if that means inside your own home and you're just behind closed doors, or you have the headphones on, you're kind of escaped from reality, and you just take some time to write down what it is you're really wanting to do, where you are today, where you want to be. So you can write it down in like old school and like really see what you want out of life. And then think about like 3 ways that you can take your product or your service and package it differently. And this is just all an exercise. This is a workshopping, a brainstorm. And so you don't have to necessarily act on it, but the thought process and the tinkering with it will kind of knock you out of that fog you may have been in, where the past 3 or so years you thought, oh, I'm supposed to do X, Y, Z. No, well, it's a whole new world. Like you said, it's like we've been playing chess and then somebody came along and just shook the chessboard and everything's different now. So you got to start with new rules, and you got to play a little bit differently than you have been.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Just to do some exercises and things that get you thinking in a different way and free things up and helps you innovate. Absolutely. So, yeah, I also wanted to mention, in case not everybody who's listening knows this, is that the startups that Backstage Capital invests in are from underrepresented founders, which I think is really important. It ties back to the story you were sharing earlier about you yourself being, not matching the typical profile of a venture capitalist. I would love to hear some stories maybe about some of the startup companies that you've invested in, like any big success stories or interesting stories about the startups that you've worked with.
Yeah, we've had a few that I think are really interesting. There's one called CurlMix, which is actually, we invest in a lot of like deep tech and SaaS and things like that. But this one is actually just a direct to consumer beauty product. And I met them when they were doing less than $10,000 in monthly revenue, which is quite a bit to be doing out of mixing hair products out of your kitchen. But they weren't necessarily venture backable at the time, and I saw something in the founders, a husband-wife team, Black husband-wife team out of Chicago, and that was 2017 spring, March. They have since then done more than 6 million in sales.
Wow. Yeah.
Just direct to consumer, which is outstanding. And yeah, so that's really exciting. And then we have someone like Paladin, for instance. Paladin is a pro bono legal company that helps lawyers fulfill their pro bono requirements, right? And Latinx co-founder, woman, and they've just been killing it since day one. They just really know what they're doing, and they're kind of experts in the space, and they've had this really interesting way of doing things. And just recently, Mark Cuban and others have posted about them because they have some great legal help and resources during COVID-19 that are just sort of groundbreaking, and very proud of them. And I'm very proud of so many of the companies who have come forward in this moment to either offer their own help that they have always been doing, or just like retooling. We had a company that was doing car washes, and they've switched things up a little bit, where they now do, I believe it's hand sanitizer. I think it's that. It could be something other liquid, but they've retooled how they do that. We have Bippy, which is a sustainable toilet paper company.
Wow.
That of course is selling out of toilet paper and has sold out many times. But what they also are doing, they manufacture to do, I know for a fact, hand sanitizer that's really good. I have some of my own, but also, and then they also donate some of that funding. But then they also set up a helpline. And you wouldn't even imagine something like that would set up a mental health helpline with experts to say, and they do it with humor, of course, because that's their brand. And but it's like, just really stepping out and not letting this happen to them, rather taking more control, which is I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow, so many great stories, and really excited to learn more about those companies. I'll put some links to the companies in the show notes so people can learn more about those too. Arlan, thank you so much for sharing more about your book and all of the great experiences that you've had with Backstage Capital. How can people connect with you if they want to learn more about Backstage Capital or get a copy of your book?
You can go to itsaboutdamntime.com. You can learn a lot about me on that site. It's a hub, and it's also where you can pick up the book in many forms. And, pick it up in the United States, the UK, Canada, Australia, parts of Africa, and beyond. And hopefully it'll be out in more and more places soon.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it. I've pre-ordered my copy, so it'll be dropping on May 5th, and look
Yes,
forward to getting that.
awesome. Awesome.
Good. Also, as we close out, is there anything else that you'd like our listeners to know or anything else they can help or support you with?
I just think the book is like, honestly, I wrote this book with so much care and love, and I can't wait to hear your feedback about it, everyone who's listening. And I just really hope you get something from it, because I want to add value as much as possible. And I put my reputation on the line with this book, and I really feel like it's going to pay off.
That's great. Yeah, definitely looking forward to reading it, and encourage all my listeners to go and grab their copy now. Thank you so much, Arlan, for being on my show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Beyond 6 Seconds. Please help us spread the word about this podcast. Share it with a friend, give us a shout out on your social media, or write a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast player. You can find all of our episodes on our website and sign up for our free newsletter at www.beyond6seconds.com. Until next time.